Hi guys, JT here, and today I'll be bringing you some information on the Humble Bundle Company of Heroes Total Command Collection of December 2022. To help you answer the question, should you buy it? If you want to know more about game bundles, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps the channel out. Anyway, let's get into this. At number 1, we have Company of Heroes, the first entry into the now classic Company of Heroes game series. Company of Heroes is a real-time strategy game based around battles of World War II. You start out being assaulted with visions of the deep red crimson sea of Omaha Beach, watching your allied soldiers die one at a time as they leap off their boats and rush forward, storming their way up the sands. You're immediately thrown into your first mission, in control of a selection of soldiers who miraculously survived the ride, and now must push forward and finish the job. This game focuses specifically on Able Company, the allied American squad. And being the focus of the game, the story is told in detail as you advance across the available 15 missions. Unlike other real-time strategy games, the developers of Company of Heroes focus on action as much as possible, by focusing on controlling territories when fighting on the front lines. Almost all missions start you off with a HQ and a small squad of engineers, and you are left to capture and hold various resource points for their manpower, munitions, and fuel. Manpower is useful for infantry, munitions allows you to upgrade individual squads or vehicles and use special abilities. Fuel allows you to purchase different tanks, vehicles, and global upgrades. If you're able to connect each territory to your HQ, you'll get the best results. This means that you just can't build a bunch of tanks and literally crush your enemy's frail bodies with it, but rather you have to plan your route and capture resource points to ensure you maximize your gains. Some maps will also lack some resources like fuel, so you're forced to use different strategies for those particular map styles. Company of Heroes also features some very competent AI with infantry units actually seemingly wanting to stay alive. This means that they will take the closest cover and not stand out in the open to be shot in the head. You have to plan ahead by building defenses around your structures. If you don't, your buildings can be quickly overtaken by the enemy. You'll also be able to build sandbags to position troops behind to defend them. The environment is also fully destructible, so you can have some fun tearing down some buildings with your tanks. So if you like to experience a classic real-time strategy game that is different from other classic RTS games, look no further than Company of Heroes. At number 2, we have Company of Heroes Opposing Fronts, an expansion to Company of Heroes that is also a standalone product. In Opposing Fronts, you have two new factions to control, the German Panzer Elite and the British Second Army. The story focuses on a specific period during World War II when British and American troops commenced Operation Market Garden. Allied forces pushed through the Netherlands to get into Germany, but they were driven back by the German Panzer Elite. The first couple of missions will have you control the German troops as you attempt to hold back the Allied attackers, while the second portion of the game will have you control the British and Canadian forces tasked with clearing out important territories within German-occupied France. Although Opposing Forces doesn't really offer any important innovations over the original game, it does introduce some new elements, upgrades, and units. As an example, the British has access to a mobile HQ which can be set up anywhere on the map, while the Germans get to use scorched earth tactics and booby traps to stop strategic points from falling into enemy hands. You can also disable strategic points altogether, which will serve as a double-edged sword, as you will lose influence on that particular part of the map, but you will also stop enemies from gaining more territory and resources like fuel and ammo. Each mission in the single-player campaign is well structured, with main objectives and secondary objectives. Secondary objectives can involve you destroying enemy mortar placements, which will save some of your men from losing their legs while advancing towards the main objectives. And you will want to keep as many lives as possible, as you can recruit these experienced soldiers for subsequent missions. Soldiers with more experience in combat are more effective in combat and have a better chance of survival on the battlefield. As per the original game, the AI in Opposing Fronts is really good for both friendly and enemy forces. Enemy vehicles are very good at prioritizing targets, so they can destroy your defenses quickly and effectively if you're not careful. So if you like Company of Heroes, then you most likely like the Opposing Forces. It offers fun, realistic tactical combat and endless tactical possibilities that will challenge newcomers and veterans alike. And number 3, we have Company of Heroes Tales of Valor, another standalone expansion to Company of Heroes. Valor offers 3 new single-player mini-campaigns that incorporates new concepts into well-presented but ultimately unchallenging missions. The first campaign is Tiger Ace, where you control a single German Tiger tank, thundering through British forces as if your tank has been made from impervious adamantium. You can earn new abilities from an RPG-like skill tree for even more death and destruction. The second campaign is Causeway, where you control a handful of American infantry squads that are pretty much comprised of an army of Rambo. All you have to do is set them to attack move behind targets and leave them to cause some mayhem, with the occasional pushing of the Revive Squad member button when prompted. The third campaign is Fallet Pocket, which will offer more of a challenge as you hold off attacking Allied forces while your wounded German comrades retreat from the battlefield. The actual notable part of this expansion is the additions into the multiplayer. Valor unlocks all 4 armies and adds a handful of optional replacement units. Thankfully, none of them are overpowered, but they do open up some new tactical possibilities. In addition, 3 new modes are introduced that completely tosses the rulebook out. The first mode is Panzerkrieg, a light action RPG where each player controls a single tank that levels up and gains selectable new abilities, with the goal of reducing the other team's victory point pool to 0. The second mode is Assault, an infantry game where you control a single heroic soldier of a chosen class and fight your way through heavily fortified enemy territory filled with AI-controlled enemies, in order to destroy your HQ. You can increase your hero's weapon, armor, and grenade power with each level, or even swap classes when you die. The third mode is Stonewall, where you and up to 3 other players work together to defend a small town against 16 waves of increasingly difficult German attacks. There are no heroes nor upgrades, and you gain resources by killing Germans rather than holding control points. Each game mode has only one map that they work on though, so don't expect too many different variations for each game mode. And number 4, we have Company of Heroes 2, the second entry into the main Company of Heroes games. In essence, Company of Heroes 2 is very similar to the first Company of Heroes. This game is still all about using smart tactical positioning to take advantage of cover and exploiting weak tank armor. Your armies are rarely more than a dozen units at a time, unlike most RTS games where you control an entire mob of units. The territory-based resource system is back, now revised to allow you to influence which of the 3 resources the points will generate, allowing more fluidity in your tactics. Company of Heroes 2 offers some visual upgrades from the first game, and it looks stunning. Watching your tank crash through walls, moving its turret around and sending an armored car into the oblivion, or watching a soldier set up and fire a heavy machine gun or mortar is really satisfying. This game features 14 single-player campaign missions, featuring the Red Army, aka the Soviets, as they desperately defend against the Nazis' advance on Stalingrad, all the way through the fall of Berlin in 1945. The narrative is quite interesting in a way that they frame the Soviets' war efforts as good men defending their homeland as opposed to the horrors perpetrated by the Stalin regime on his own people. Thinking about it though, the developers probably want you to like the protagonist rather than pitting 2 evils together, so it makes sense. The campaign mostly comprises of search and destroy and hold out defense objectives, similar to the first game. A new mechanic in this game is Snow, where you need to ensure that your units stay warm to stay alive, so this will require some micromanagement. The Theater of War mode brings some diversity to the game with both interesting single player and co-op challenges to complete and compete for high scores on the leaderboards. These challenges feature some interesting missions that you would hope was introduced in the main campaign itself. Every mission you complete in the campaign and Theater of War gives you medals that allow you to unlock bonuses and vehicle skins. Thankfully, the earned bonuses aren't very noticeable, like a 2% bonus to damage. Competitive multiplayer maps are plentiful, with a revised commander ability system that is now less of a tree and more like a series of linear tracks that you can pick between early in the match. This system limits your abilities to pivot your strategy mid-game, which is quite annoying. However, in saying that, Company of Heroes 2 is an excellent sequel to the series that sticks close to its original counterpart, albeit sometimes too closely, and is definitely worth playing. And number 5 we have Company of Heroes 2, The Western Front Armies. The standalone expansion that ignores single-player campaign in favor of multiplayer modes with the arrival of the German Oberkommando West and the US Army. Basically, you get to bring your favorite units from Company of Heroes 1 into Company of Heroes 2 with its slightly new systems and graphical upgrades. The German army runs on organization. You start with a single headquarters building and a supply truck. To build more advanced units, the truck needs to be driven onto captured grounds and converted into one of the 3 mobile HQ buildings: support, armor, or defense. Converting the trucks will take some time and resources, but you'll end up with a network of reinforced hardpoints that enemies have to slowly chew through. The German army is a vehicle-heavy army, with only 3 infantry unit types, but a dozen variety of vehicles at your disposal. The Americans, on the other hand, start with fully formed bases. However, you'll have to work to recruit the officers necessary to run these supply lines. Officers are powerful individual units that allow you to field advanced infantry support. The 2 new armies are well-realized looks at the national attitudes and circumstances that inspired them, based on the social constructs of each country during World War II. Americans may seem to have the advantage of a fully formed base, but they do have their failings, like their weakness against buildings, where they have to call in armor to destroy a bunker instead of being able to put a demolition charge with engineers. This expansion also brings with it 8 new maps set on the Western Front into the multiplayer, and they're all well balanced and varied. While the price of this expansion was originally steep, it is definitely worth it now that it is included in this bundle. And number 6 we have Company of Heroes 2, Ardennes Assault. The second standalone expansion to the Company of Heroes 2 game. As opposed to the Western Front Army's expansion, Ardennes Assault focuses on a new single-player campaign, one that has learned a lot of lessons from the multiplayer side. You control several companies named Fox, which is your assault, Dog, which is your support, Able, which is your airborne, and Baker, which is your mechanical, and they can accrue veterancy and equally casualties. You're free to move your companies however you want while navigating the next 18 missions. Your decisions on the battlefield will affect your playthrough, as attacking one mission like defeating a small German outpost, causing them to retreat to territories you have ignored, has allowed them to reinforce another German position, making your next mission more difficult. Although this is not a new concept, this wider game of cat and mouse adds a real sense of danger, even after you seem to have won a battle as the war still rages on. Each of your company has access to its own skill trees to upgrade, like making paratroopers cheaper to call in, or have your aerial assault unit arrive faster, for example. You can choose to focus on one company's power, but striking a balance between your companies is the more sensible option. Your units can also gain abilities through veterancy. That basically means the more your units see battle, the better they will be on the battlefield. Much like the base game, the battlefield is filled with intense, harrowing real-time strategy action with emphasis on small squads and tactics over tank rushes and super weapons. If you do not make good use of your surroundings and make tactical decisions on the fly, you most likely end up being utterly destroyed by the Nazis. Because the game world is persistent, even if you lose a battle, it is not game over, but rather the game continues and you have a weakened force to fight against the Nazis. Being able to strategize on the fly becomes even more necessary by Ardennes Assault's emergent elements, like randomly selected objectives and sub-objectives, and an opponent of varying power and ability. You have to keep on top of it all to be successful in your campaign against the Germans. At number 7 we have Company of Heroes 2, The British Forces. Another multiplayer standalone expansion pack for Company of Heroes 2. This expansion introduces the British Army into the multiplayer mode. What makes the British Army different is that you can decide between two approaches to your army. As you progress through the tech tree, you have two branching styles of play. The Anvil approach, which focuses on defense, and the Hammer approach, which focuses on mobility and offense. This expansion includes 15 units, 6 commanders with unique abilities, and 8 multiplayer maps ranging from the German steelworks to the city of Dusseldorf. Units in the British forces are some of the most varied and unique seen in Company of Heroes games. You begin with some early tech tree units, before making your way to more advanced units like the Churchill Crocodile tank with a giant flamethrower gun. The ability to change up your army to focus on defense or offense also makes each experience playing the British Army different, depending on which tree you go for. If you're looking for more mobile units in the game, the British Army has that too, with some quick moving vehicles. The tanks are quite varied from one another, some fast and nimble, while others have more armor and firepower. The British Army also has access to premier commando squads that favor stealth and bomb planting for their battlefield incursions, or the Vickers who have access to heavy machine guns and armor-piercing snipers to take on light enemy vehicles. The abilities of commanders are also quite varied, allowing you to take on different situations on the battlefield. Do note that not all commanders are unlocked at the start, and some of the more advanced units need to be won from victory chests. The British Forces expansion is an excellent multiplayer expansion pack for veteran players, while also being a great entry point for newcomers to the series. And that's all for this bundle. This bundle is great if you like playing some challenging real-time strategy games based around World War II, or blowing people up to pieces with your artillery. Anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.